Greetings everyone, my name is Monoverantus. You've seen my work, but you haven't seen me, so I've decided to make a sort of introduction. In this video, I intend to explain who I am, what I'm doing, and how I will proceed in the future. I'm Swedish, so you'll have to excuse my weird accent. Now I suppose I'm some kind of YouTuber. In reality, I'm an arts and music teacher. As you probably can tell, I'm a huge fan of A Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, Peter Jackson's movie adaptation, and Howard Shore's score for said movie adaptation. Me and The Lord of the Rings goes a long way back. My mother was a fan of her books back in the days and told me and my sister stories about Frodo and Gollum, Gandalf the Grey fighting the Balrog and becoming Gandalf the White, etc. So when the movies were announced, it was an exciting time. Me and my sister started reading the books, starting with The Hobbit of course, but I hadn't finished Fellowship before watching it, so while Gandalf's apparent death didn't come as a surprise, Boromir did. Holy crap, that was intense. I don't remember exactly how long I got in relation to the other movies, but I had finished the trilogy before watching the third. My sister gave up somewhere in the third book. And I was spoiled on the ending by one of my best friends, and I will never forgive him for this betrayal. So I had some intense feelings about this franchise long before becoming a dedicated soundtrack scholar. So to summarize, the books, amazing. I tried to write a sequel in middle school, complete with genealogies and Middle-earth style maps. The movies, epic. Apart from the books we already had, we bought the behind-the-scenes books, the concept books, games, dolls, bookmarks, posters. We got the movies on VHS and the super ultra deluxe DVD case. And finally, the score. This score is what made me interested in soundtracks. I'd listen to these discs over and over like other people listen to their favorite bands. But back then I didn't know anything about music. I started playing the piano around 2007 and didn't start to read music theory seriously until years later. At the time I listened to this score the most, Doug Adams' book about it would have been incomprehensible to me. So though I always loved the score, I have not always understood the score. But I know a whole lot more now, and dare I say it, more than most people do about this particular score. But what if I could share what I knew with those who don't? At some point I downloaded the Annotated score. If you don't know what that is, it's the track-by-track analysis written by Doug Adams that would later lay the groundwork for his book. Many passages are identical, but what's interesting is that the labeling of themes are not always 100% the same. For example, what we know now as the Strider theme and the Aragorn theme used to be commonly known together as the Heroics of Aragorn. It used to be considered one theme with two distinct variations. Apart from this, I think the greatest resource this document has been to me is the unused concepts. Throughout the tracks, Doug lists all these changes in the development, what was recorded, what wasn't, and what was recorded but discarded in the edit, etc. Another influential document that was integral to my understanding of the score is this complete transcription of the Fellowship of the Ring by the mysterious transcriber M.W. It is readily available to anyone on Alcaero's sheet music, where I found it, and it is just extraordinary. There's so many intricate details I never would have noticed without it. So to M.W., I don't even know your name, but seriously, thank you. That you put in all this work and then give it away for free is one of my greatest inspirations. So just by getting these files, a whole new level of understanding opened up to me. I started to make my own document, where I listed the themes I knew and tried to find the time codes for every theme entering and leaving. This is also where I finally did what I had long dreaded. I googled it. When I started this project, the thought eating away at me was, what if someone already did this? Someone must have done this. And yes, someone had done this. Around 2015 I found a Magpie's Nest. This website both broke my heart and reinvigorated my nerd love of this score simultaneously. Yes, I was devastated that my project, my ambition, had been in vain. But there was just so much neat stuff here. There were sound samples, there were track-by-track cues, there were lyrics with timestamps. I think the great thing a Magpie's Nest did for me was help me see my interpretation of a score as something to value. Magpie cited Doug's book heavily, but didn't always agree with him. And you know what? Neither do I. My reading of a score is not the same as anybody else's. I see connections others don't, and that's not wrong per se. Sure, it might not always be what Howard Shore intended, but he's not the sole arbiter of what's right or not. It's perfectly valid to put your own feelings and ideas into your interpretation of a work of art. It was actually the news of this site shutting down that finally got me working on this project for real. So how exactly did that happen? Well, this document evolved into a new idea. Here is a sample of the first video I made. Yeah, we've come a long way from this, haven't we? 2 years ago I began my work for real, starting by finally buying Doug's book, which is the main source for my videos. In this first version I intended to stay to official information, citing only Doug and Howard. Basically, just make an audio-visual version of a book. But soon enough, that felt way too limiting. You see where I'm going with this, don't you? Indeed, I had too many independent ideas to just abide by the supposed canon. Like, there are mistakes in this book. It's not always 100% correct. If Doug Adams can take liberties or overanalyze, so can I. Now that I've finished The Fellowship of the Ring, I won't start releasing the Two Towers videos until I've made a buffer of finished videos. I will not be releasing 3 videos a week even then. But in the meantime, I'd like to correct errors in the old videos and expand in other ways. Of course, I'm gonna make sure to finish all 3 movies. Thing is, that's not the whole story. There are, after all, 2 versions of the score. The original soundtrack and the complete recordings. The complete recordings is, as it sounds, the entire 12-hour score from start to finish with a few exceptions. There are parts that didn't make it into any cut of the movies, and some parts that were recut and feature on more than one track. The original soundtrack, on the other hand, is a series of overtures, where themes are woven together more to fit a musical idea than the strict sequence of events. Like this part from the track At the Sign of a Prancing Pony. The music for Frodo catching the ring is immediately followed by the ring wraiths invading Bree. It doesn't fit the movie cut, but it makes for a much more dramatical and satisfying climax music-wise. So while some of you are gonna clamor for a second version of these analyses using the original soundtrack, it wouldn't really make any sense. And of course, there's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the mountain. Look, I really didn't like The Hobbit. The book is great, but it's not a contender with The Lord of the Rings. It's not trying to be a contender with The Lord of the Rings. Why, oh why, did The Hobbit have to be bigger, faster, shinier, crasser, more epic, more violent, more everything? Why? It's a small book, with a small story, in a small world, with tiny, tiny ambitions. And that's what I wanted. I wanted The Hobbit, not The Lord of the Rings, Return of the Ring. Excuse me. Sorry, but the love's just not there. Even if I had thought Shore's score was perfect, which it certainly isn't, I just can't bring myself to slave over these notes and chords for a trilogy I detest. And even then, even if I did, for whatever reason, for the art, for you, my audience, I can't. For guess what? The Hobbit doesn't have a complete recordings. There is none. The Hobbit original soundtrack is pretty much 50% original compositions that were thrown out to be replaced with samples from The Lord of the Rings. Listen.
I've never been so wrong normal life.
See this shit? This is why I'll never make a Hobbit score analysis. Someone else do it. But to the stuff that I am gonna do. Just like Doug's book, there are two parts to this project. The first is what you've already seen, the core of this channel, the track-by-track analysis. But I also intend on expanding. At times, there's just not enough room in my videos to explain a musical idea or voice all the fascinating theories. So along with the track-by-track videos, I intend to make theme-by-theme videos, delving deeper into different motifs or cultures. How about a video explaining all the Shire themes and accompaniments, in what way they relate to each other and how they develop through the story? Or one on Lothlorien's use of modes, or the ties between the cultures of Rohan and Gondor. There are so many interesting nuances in the Dorian and Lydian harmonies and opening intervals of their principal melodies. This is ripe soil for some deep thematic analysis, through rigorous music theory and wild speculation. These will likely be easier to churn out whenever I want, since they don't have to be made in a particular order. And it will allow me to show up on camera more once in a while, so you have a face and a voice to associate with my channel. And so, I hope I'll see you again.